Picture the moment someone tells you they're leaving. Most people's instinct is to fight it, plead their case, promise to change, call one more time. Some men don't do any of that. They hear it, they accept it, and they let the person go. It looks like indifference from the outside. The research says it's usually the opposite, a set of specific psychological patterns around control, autonomy, and self-worth, each one studied in real depth. 5 of those patterns, and the actual psychology behind them. Let's get into it. They believe real relationships cannot be forced. In 1966, psychologist Jack Brehm proposed something called psychological reactance theory. The finding that when people feel pressured or their freedom is being restricted, their instinct isn't to comply, it's to push back, even against things they might have wanted freely. Applied to relationships, this means chasing someone who's already decided to leave doesn't just fail to work, it can actively backfire, hardening the very decision it's trying to reverse. Men who understand this aren't giving up early. They're avoiding a dynamic the research says tends to make things worse, not better.
2. They respect other people's choices. Self-determination theorists Edward Deci and Richard Ryan studied something they called autonomy support, the difference between relationships where people feel controlled versus relationships where their independent choices are respected, even when those choices are painful for the other person. Their research consistently found that autonomy-supportive relationships, paradoxically, are the ones people are more likely to stay in voluntarily. Trying to override someone else's decision might buy a few more days. It rarely
buys back trust. Men who step back instead of pushing are often unknowingly doing the one thing shown to preserve whatever relationship still exists, respecting the choice, even the choice to leave. 3. They protect their self-respect. Psychologist Kristin Neff's research on self-compassion looked at how people respond to their own pain, specifically the difference between self-criticism and treating yourself with the same understanding you'd offer a friend. Chasing someone who has clearly chosen to leave often triggers a private, punishing narrative. If I just try harder, I can fix this. Neff's research suggests that narrative usually does more damage to self-worth than the rejection itself. Letting go isn't numbness. Often, it's the more self-compassionate response, treating your own dignity as something worth protecting, not something to spend chasing a closed door. 4. They focus on what they can control. Psychologist Julian Rotter's concept of locus of control, developed in the 1950s, distinguishes between people who believe outcomes are driven by their own actions, internal locus, and people who believe outcomes are driven by external forces, external locus. Decades of follow-up research consistently link an internal locus of control to better resilience and faster recovery after setbacks, largely because that mindset redirects energy toward what's actually actionable. A relationship ending isn't something willpower can reverse, but healing, growth, and what comes next are squarely inside a person's control. Men who redirect their energy there aren't avoiding the pain. They're just spending their effort where it actually produces something. 5. They believe the right people won't need convincing. Psychologist Harry Reis built much of his research career around a model called perceived partner responsiveness, the idea that the healthiest relationships are the ones where care, understanding, and validation are freely offered,
not extracted through effort or persuasion. By this model, a relationship that requires ongoing convincing to sustain itself was already missing the ingredient that makes relationships work in the first place. Men who don't chase aren't settling for less connection. They're holding out for the kind of responsiveness Reis's research says actually predicts long-term relationship satisfaction, the kind that doesn't need to be asked.
Letting someone go rarely means a person stopped caring. More often, it means they understand something the research keeps confirming. Pressure creates resistance, not connection. Respecting someone's choice preserves more than fighting it. Self-worth survives better through compassion than through pursuit. Energy spent on what's controllable outperforms energy spent on what isn't. And the relationships that last were never the ones that needed convincing. Opening your hand isn't giving up.
Sometimes it's the only thing psychology says actually works. If you're into the research behind relationships, self-respect, and the psychology of letting go, subscribe. Because here, we don't just describe behavior. We trace it back to the research.